Everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Araceli, aka Chelly, and today on Chelly's Mental Wealth, we're going to be talking about intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts, the ones that come in through and come right out, and they stay and they're just like mind-fucking us. So this is a very it's not a highly requested video, but I did do a poll on my Instagram, and a lot of people really wanted me to cover this topic, and I completely understand. And I remember someone DM'd me and asked me if I could do this video. So thank you so much for suggesting that. And hopefully you're watching. I'm going to explain to you guys how intrusive thoughts work and also just provide you some tips at the end of the video. So please stay tuned for that. Wait until the end of the video. So let's get started. Intrusive thoughts. Intrusive thoughts is something that anyone can deal with, whether you are diagnosed with any type of mental disorder or not. I've noticed that with intrusive thoughts, it can happen to anyone who's suffering with anxiety, social anxiety, depression, even aggression. I would say even in all aspects, especially if you're going through PTSD, that's a very extreme form of intrusive thoughts that makes your life miserable and it impairs everything that you do. And by impairing, what I mean by that is it pretty much controls every decision that you make throughout your life or by your day-by-day choices. And these intrusive thoughts can come and go at any time, and it can affect anyone at any age. And it can also be something that's very debilitating for some people. So just making sure that those intrusive thoughts, if you've caught yourself noticing that you tend to have intrusive thoughts consistently, there's quite a few things that you can do to reduce those intrusive thoughts. And one thing that you guys also have to remember, that even though you do have some type of intrusive thoughts, it is possible for you to reduce the amount of times you have those intrusive thoughts. And you also have to remember that it can happen to anyone regardless, and you could go through phases as well. So it just really depends on how much you're self-aware when those intrusive thoughts really do come in and out, and if you're willing to really work towards reducing those intrusive thoughts. An intrusive thought can happen to anyone that has gone through any type of trauma, especially with certain types of abuse. Anything that has to do with physical, verbal, sexual abuse, those intrusive thoughts can come on through and filter out and can make you not want to do certain things because those thoughts are so horrific and horrible, and it's just, or scary, or life-threatening. So just remember, like I keep saying, it is possible for you guys to reduce those intrusive thoughts. It just takes a lot of practice and a lot of self-awareness, and just willing to just put in the work. And also too, you guys gotta also remember that some people might say like, oh, get over it, and this and this, and it shouldn't be that way. I think it's really important that you actually go through your intrusive thoughts and rationalize them and think about them. But don't get stuck there. Like I've always mentioned in my other previous videos, is whatever you're feeling or thinking, do not get stuck there, because you're going to get stuck in that little vicious cycle of just thinking of that horrible thought over and over and over. And then that's all you're going to be used to doing. Like your brain is just going to get used to doing that. So, but I also want you to remember that you guys cannot suppress those thoughts, because by suppressing those thoughts and suppressing those feelings is gonna make those intrusive thoughts a lot worse, and they're just never gonna stop. So just remember, go through those intrusive thoughts, and then that's when you start to apply your techniques. So remember, I keep saying remember. Now, I'm going to mention a couple of tips that I've done with some of my consumers, and hopefully you guys can implement it, whether you teach it to your family member or your kid, or you just want to try it within yourself. They're very, very good tips that you can apply. And yeah, so let me start. So the one thing that I remember that worked really, really well is there was an incident where we seen an ambulance cross, and my client right away thought that something bad was going to happen, which is, it's very common for us to really think that if an ambulance is turning on their sirens, that something bad is happening within the ambulance. And what I did with her, I said, you know what, you're right. I validated, which I think it's really important that you validate the person's feelings and fears. And then afterwards, just think about other positive aspects with that situation. So if what I did during that situation is I explained, well, maybe it's someone, what if it's someone that's pregnant and they're about to give birth and they're just wanting to shoot them to, making sure that they get to the hospital as soon as they can. What if they went to a home and they were in the mix of passing away, but they revived them and they're just rushing to the hospital. So technically they actually saved someone's life and they just want to make sure that they are able to keep that person alive. So just kind of thinking of other possibilities and not getting stuck in that negative thought. And that's what I've noticed that's helped a lot. It's making sure you do that. I did something on my Instagram story about road rage where, a lot of people who drive a lot tend to have really short patience when it comes down to other drivers. And when someone cuts you off or does all this kind of crazy stuff, you start to already think negatively about that driver and you don't even know them. These intrusive thoughts come into your head and you get really upset and mad, and you just got mad when they made a mistake. When why waste that energy when you could be happy, or you don't want that to take you to your home and you're going to be in a bad mood. So what I did during that situation is I just started thinking, I'm like, okay, well, maybe they never were really taught to turn on their blinker. Like they were modeled that behavior by their parents where they just never put the blinker, so they just copy that behavior. Or maybe their blinker doesn't work. And once I started saying that stuff, even though I started laughing, it really did help me kind of put a humor in my brain, and it just reduced the aggression or me being pissed off because they didn't turn on their blinker I think 10 times. So that's another little mini example similar to what I did with my other consumer. So I think it's a really good exercise, making sure you go through those positive thoughts, even though if they do feel fake, do them. It makes a huge difference. The more you do it, the easier it gets, and it will become more of a habit, and you will be not as stuck and asphyxiated over those intrusive thoughts. The second technique that I can suggest to you guys is actually making sure you check yourself when you're having those intrusive thoughts. So write down how many times does that really happen per day or per week. So you are building those skills to be more self-aware towards your intrusive thoughts. Because if you're not aware of your intrusive thoughts, you cannot plan ahead. Because if you know that your intrusive thoughts happen in certain times or when you're around certain people or when you're around a certain environment, then you can prepare yourself when you get exposed to those type of situations or people or environment, and be ready so that when an intrusive thought comes, you're going to be able to filtrate that intrusive thought, and you'll be able to move on and not let it affect you, and you can still do your everyday routine or whatever you gotta go to that party, you had to go to that event, or you had to go to work, or you had to work with that coworker you don't like, or you had to work with a family member you get, I don't know, just all kinds of things. You making sure that you're prepared all the time makes a huge difference. Is planning ahead and being self-aware. So jot it down. Have a family member to notice when you're thinking negatively or you're speaking out loud. Because sometimes we do say them in our heads and we don't say them out loud. Sometimes we will say them out loud, which is a lot easier for another person to kind of let you know, like, hey, you're doing it again. You're saying bad things about yourself. And having that extra support makes a huge difference too. But if you don't, it's okay. Be accountable and write down how many times you get those intrusive thoughts. Because if you really dislike those intrusive thoughts, you're going to put in the effort and you're going to do it. Because believe me, it's going to make a huge difference. So write it down, make sure you do it. And then every time that you do say something negative, go back to a list, make a list of things that are positive, pay attention to the things that you always say negative, and then find the opposite of it. I'm going to get something on my phone that I've seen on Pinterest where there's these negative thoughts, and then instead of thinking of those negative thoughts, you have the opposite of those negative thoughts. And I think that type of tool is super important. If I can get it, I'm probably gonna put it right here, bloop, just put it right here somewhere where you guys can kind of have an idea as to what you guys can do. Or maybe I can probably put the link here and you guys can go look at it on Pinterest and see how you can apply it in your everyday. I feel like if you print something out like that and you carry it with you, you can kind of remind yourself like, oh yeah, every time I say this, I can say this instead. And then the more you start practicing saying the opposite of what you were used to saying, it's going to become a habit, and you're not going to really be talking as negative, or those thoughts won't be coming through as much because you're going to be thinking about positive thoughts. So what I always say, the power of habit, it still goes into that whole loop. It's a coping mechanism that we get used to doing, and it's a negative coping mechanism. Intrusive thoughts is a negative coping mechanism that sometimes it takes control of our lives, And it's just important for us to kind of nip it in the bud and make sure we implement a more healthier coping skill. So just kind of think about it like that, you guys. Think about it as like, oh, it's a negative coping skill, so I can take it out. And also too, I don't think I've ever mentioned this in any of my videos. It is extremely important that you believe in these type of techniques and these type of suggestions and recommendations, because if you do not believe, just like how with faith and all those other things, when you see someone working out, you believe you could get there because you see the results. So you have to believe in what you're doing, because if you don't, it ain't gonna work. And it works the same with therapy, couples therapy. If you do not believe that it's gonna work for you, don't even try it, because those intrusive thoughts is gonna ruin everything. It's just, you can't. But if you're already thinking of a more positive mindset, it's going to work for you, and it's going to help tremendously in really reducing those intrusive thoughts and really taking control of your thoughts more. And and hopefully eventually, once you start doing it more, teach other people. You know, when you teach other people, it's going to reinforce your memory, and it's going to reinforce your ability to keep on doing what you have to do to keep yourself better. And pass on this technique, and remind people whenever you see someone, oh, I know how you feel, I can help you, or this is what I did. So those are 1, 2, and then what was the other one? Making sure, I know I had another one with intrusive thoughts. I think I said like already 3, but I think that's it, you guys. If you guys have any more questions, please leave comments down below, and I'll try to answer them to the best of my abilities. Thank you so much for watching. Please do not forget to subscribe, and make sure you poke that like button, and please share this. There's someone that might be suffering with it. Well, I know a lot of people suffer with intrusive thoughts, including me. So share this video for someone that might want to learn about intrusive thoughts, and maybe they can feel a little bit better about having intrusive thoughts, because believe me, everybody has them. For example, you know, with me, my intrusive thoughts is my self-esteem. So whenever I see something that triggers my intrusive thoughts, it'll lower down my self-esteem, and then I get in a bad mood and all that stuff. And it's the whole vicious cycle. So what I try to do is start, like I said, like I think positive. Like I'm like, okay, yeah, this is true, but then also this also happened too. You know, like you have to always see the positive of in the negative. One thing that Jamie Foxx said that I remember is that there's always a yin to the yang. So whenever something positive happens in your life, there's always something negative kind of dangling there that you kind of have to deal with. And whenever something negative that happens in your life, there's always something positive there dangling that you may not have noticed or seen, but it's there. And that's what you have to focus on, is the positives. You can keep on moving and not let it control you and make your life miserable. So thank you guys. Thanks. I appreciate you guys a lot. And I'll see you guys in my next video.